Welcome to Yogiviews, where my guest is yoga itself, through interviewing those who practice it, teach it, sell it, or simply love it. I am Antonio Sausys. The use of yogic principles and methodologies with a therapeutic intention is today known as yoga therapy, and it's gaining increasing popularity. Most importantly, it is becoming an effective option for those that tire of unsuccessful attempts to improve through Western medicine protocols, decide to seek alternative options. Yoga therapy is now scientifically proven to be helpful in preventing and aiding in the recovery from physical and mental ailments. As the spectrum of conditions helped by yoga therapy and yoga therapeutic models grow, what is yoga therapy and who is a yoga therapist is a matter of increasing interest and concern, both in the medical and yogic communities. This is the second part of a two-part show where I'm interviewing Robin Gueth. Robin is a 38-year veteran of yoga and has been teaching yoga therapy for 20 years. She's a graduate of the American Yoga College directed by Rama Yotivernen and is certified in Nishtala Devi's Yoga for the Heart. She has studied with Angela Farmer and Victor van Kooten, and her background includes Kripalu Yoga, Iyengar Yoga, Shiatsu and Thai massage, Feldenkrais, Dharma and Accu Yoga. She is skilled in working with various types of mental illnesses, respiratory illnesses, and orthopedic issues. Her studio, the Stress Management Center of Marin, is the first in the Bay Area to be awarded accreditation in yoga therapy training from the International Association of Yoga Therapists. In terms of the contract between a yoga student and a yoga teacher, and the one that a yoga therapist and a client have, the therapy obviously is involved, and the contract is not the same, right? This therapeutic eye, do you think that includes necessarily that, for example, a client would practice at home? Something that a yoga teacher would not need to demand from a student.
Yeah, I would say that I have never given anyone a yoga therapy session that didn't involve something they were going to do for the rest of their lives. I very rarely am offering them something that I think they'll only do for a couple of weeks. I try very hard to make sure that my yoga therapy doesn't feel like medicine, because nobody takes medicine for very long. What I try to do is reacquaint them with ways to keep their body and their minds more at ease. And if I'm able to do that, their yoga becomes their sanctuary. Their yoga becomes the place they run to and never a place they run away from. All of my clients would tell you that they have heard me say 1,000 times, when you are hurt, something's wrong, you run to your yoga, you don't run away from your yoga. So if I frame it up that way properly for the client, it becomes their go-to place to feel better immediately whenever they want to for the rest of their days. One of the big coups, I count it as a big coup, was one of my boys that came through the football program. When he got to his senior year and he had just for the first time been acquainted with yoga, was so shocked that he could feel that much better and that he actually had the power to do those things and that no one had ever shown him those things in all those years of sports, that he changed his major going into college to physical therapy, and I just heard he was accepted into the doctoral program for physical therapy. So I'm thrilled with that. I'm hoping he's going to finish and come back and work with me. But it's that idea of empowering people so that they know how to keep themselves healthy and easeful as they go through their lives. So yeah, I would say it's that kind of a contract. It's that kind of a contract.
You were emphasizing training.
Yes.
And you were mentioning numbers of hours. You were saying 1,000 hours, 800 hours. We know that some of the most accredited and important yoga therapy trainings in India are 5 years, 6 hours a day, which I don't know how many hours that is, but it absolutely exceeds 1,000 hours. And I think that it's very Western and very United States American to measure it in hours. What do you think? Do you think that it has some?
Yeah, well, we didn't actually measure it in hours. The Stress Management Center was one of the member schools of that whole discussion with IAYT, and it went on for many years to try to figure out how many hours does it take to train a yoga therapist. And what I think we finally realized was that all of us that were having the discussion had thousands of hours and decades of time. And so when we turned around and tried to figure out how are we going to put what's in our minds in someone else's mind so that they can have this training and go about being a yoga therapist, we realized that it couldn't only be a number of hours. So the IAYT standard is 800 hours, which is just a start, but it has to be over 2 years. So no one is allowed to just go do an 800-hour immersion for the summer and show up in the fall and work with heart patients. That's not going to happen. So they realized that it was a quantity of time for people to percolate and practice and think about and dream about and try it out and feel it in their own bodies that was so important. So 800 hours is a drop in the bucket, but the 24 months, also very important. And all of us that have ever trained in yoga, you're a trained yogi, so you know you make a commitment to your very first training to always remain a student. Mm-hmm. So, you know, thinking about it from a standpoint of America, where healthcare is everywhere and it's possible to get healthcare, we are complementary. We are helping. In India, I don't know, maybe the expectation is different. Maybe people are seeing a yoga therapist in India in lieu of seeing any other kind of healthcare. Mm-hmm. But here we have the privilege and the benefit of having both. Mm-hmm. So as a complementary practice, 800 hours over 24 months, it's a start.
And in those hours and in that amount of time, what do you think is the most important skill that a yoga therapist need to develop?
Listening.
Listening. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that? Why do you say that?
Because I have never met a client who could not tell me by the end of an intake interview exactly what was going on with them and exactly what they wanted to see happen to fix it. I have never ever met a client who didn't know all of that. If you listen and you ask questions and then you shut up and listen.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that works equally well for all conditions? That principle works the same for all conditions?
I think active listening is one of the most challenging skills for anybody to learn, particularly people that have the kind of personality to be givers, the kind of people that want to be yoga therapists. Frequently get a little too caught up in all the things they want to tell the client, and need to train a great deal about listening to where the client is coming from, and picking up all those cues. So there are also nonverbal cues. We do a lot of training on nonverbal cues as well, of course.
And so you're defining a yoga therapist. So let's say we're talking now to the clients or to the people who need help. What would you suggest a regular individual, when they are looking for a yoga therapist, should look for?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously we're at the dawn of accreditation. So because we have taken that very serious step, it took us several years to get that accreditation accomplished. I would say look for an accredited yoga teacher from an accredited program. But I think it's also very important that they find a yoga teacher that they resonate with, and one that perhaps has some skill in their particular issue. If they're looking at something specific, it would be really nice to know that that person has had some success with that. Do they understand the medications that you are having to take? Do they understand the orthopedic issues or the emotional issues or the psychological issues? Have they got any experience with that? Have they got a passion for what it is that's an issue for you? I think that's true with any healthcare provider, right? We all know that some folks are better at some things than other things, and I think that's true of a yoga therapist as well. So I would say interview them carefully. Mm-hmm. And now, because we have accreditation, you will at least know that that standard has been met if they are coming out of an accredited program.
Mm. And those individuals that are coming out from the accredited programs, do you feel they are confident in what they do? Is that your experience?
I hope so. That's what I'm trying to do, is instill confidence in them.
Because when I train yoga therapists, and I train a lot, they're scared to death. And the truth is that when you understand that the fullness of what can happen, most of them go through the 800 hours and understand that they haven't gotten truly the tools to fully be in charge of another person's health.
I'm never fully in charge of anyone else's health. They're in charge of their health,
Well, yes.
and I am just a tour guide. So as long as my teachers stay within themselves and within their own integrity and their own truth, they will know when to make a phone call to me or to some of the other lead teachers. They will know when to do their research. They will know when to say, I'm going to look at that, let me do a little homework on that, and we'll talk about it next week. So we all started somewhere. I am a firm believer that generally a client will not open up to someone who cannot handle what they are opening up about. There has to be that sense of resonance and confidence, or they won't say anything about it in the first place. So I think every yoga teacher finds their voice. I hope we help them find their voice. And once they've found their voice, they attract their audience and they progress. They don't have to start at the most intricate issues. They don't have to start there.
Well, and you're suggesting two very important tools, which are supervision and referral. So if you don't know, you can supervise with your mentors, and if you don't know what to do, refer to someone that knows.
And one of the fun parts about the 800-hour program is that in order to get them the kind of practice that we wanted them to have, we have instituted a yoga clinic, which is something the public can walk into, much the same as massage clinics are run. And they get student teachers, and they get a yoga therapist supervising, and everybody gets a little bit of practice with handling one client and doing the intake and writing a tools practice down for them and sending them out on their way and seeing if they come back the next week and how it went and did they understand and how did it go. And they get to do it with us looking over their shoulder. So we do a lot of confidence building in them, but hopefully not overconfidence, enough confidence for them to do what they know is right, what they feel strongly is the proper thing to do from their training, and when to ask questions and when to step back.
You have mentioned research, you mentioned it again now, and you have done some research. What do you think is the value of research, particularly? Because for 6,000 years, nobody researched yoga, and it works. And now it's all about research. If it's not research, we don't know if it works.
Research is just a way of translating what we all believe yoga can do into words and structures that Western healthcare can understand. It helps them know when to call a yogi. When is it useful? What does it do? So that's why the research is so important, because we are being called more and more to help with healthcare. And the more we are called to help, the easier it is for us to do that if everybody understands what we can bring to the table.
And how do you think the Western medical establishment is accepting yoga therapy? Because on the other hand, you have mentioned several times Kaiser, which is known to have a slightly more holistic approach. But you go to other providers and yoga therapy is not prescribed, you cannot bill as a yoga therapist. So how do you think the establishment is taking yoga therapy? Do you think?
I think we'll see more and more of it. I think the latest article that came out was the one from Aetna, right? Managing by Mantra, where one of the heads of Aetna was talking about instituting yoga therapy and bringing yoga therapy in under an insurance realm. I think that as the healthcare industry moves more and more towards that emphasis on not having people return into the healthcare cycle, that once they are released, that they are to be released and be able to stand on their feet, we will be called more and more and more in to help, because we're that logical person to come in and help. We can help with someone's state of mind, we can help with their physical comfort, we can understand what's going on in a way that a PT cannot, and we can understand what's happening in their mind in a way that a counselor does. So we are that perfect stopgap. And again, Kaiser maybe is leading the way. Yay for Kaiser, because we are now on the clinical side. And it's very exciting to be accepted there and to be respected as a professional and as someone who is bringing something valuable into that team. So I think that where the glass ceiling gets broken, it's broken. So we will see more and more of it coming in. More and more of it coming in. We actually make financial sense, right? We help them spend less money on healthcare if we can help people have a better recovery. So it will be the insurance companies that pull us in because we will save everybody some money.
Do you think that there is an aspect of or a side of the medical establishment that accepts yoga therapy better than others, or not? Or do you think that it's all doctors, it's all across?
I think at this point it's individuals, right? At this point it's individuals. So when you think about, Dr. Ornish, he's sitting on the president's board of preventative medicine, and President Clinton and Al Gore and all these people are following the heart health program. I think that it's individual doctors right now, but keep in mind that those individual doctors were young people in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of them were practicing yoga. So it's not as foreign an object to them as it was to the doctor that brought me into the world. Right? It's much more common that the doctors that I'm talking to that are in their 60s have all done yoga. So they know what it does. They know what it brings. So it's not that big a leap.
Do you think there's a difference because this idea that we all know yoga and we all practice is beautiful here in this coast is quite prominent as well in the East Coast, but in the middle of the country, do you think it's the same or not?
Well, I don't know. You asked a question at some point about yoga being a $47 billion industry. You said that at the beginning of the show. That's an awful lot of people that are reading magazines and seeing yoga. I don't ever look at the television where I don't see a reference to yoga to do everything from sell a car to help you sleep at night. So I think it's becoming much more commonly understood and commonly used. I come from Indiana. We did a lot of yoga in Indiana, so I think it's probably in Topeka. I think it's on its way.
Okay.
Oklahoma City. I think so. I'm actually consulting in Texas. There's a lot of yoga in Texas, so
well, yes.
That's the middle of the country.
Yes, you're right. Yes, it's a little bit of a hub, though, as well, for yoga. It's
Austin,
a special
Austin
place.
is a very special place,
special
no doubt.
place. We have been naming yoga as the integration mind, body, spirit. We have been talking a lot about how yoga can address mental illness and physical illness. Do you bring in the spirit?
Of course. I don't think you're able to separate the spirit. I don't always talk about it in a straightforward fashion. I don't have to. If I have helped one of my clients find a very deep place and a quiet place for themselves, then that piece is coming through. So yeah, I think it's in everything.
And why? Because that's your approach as a practitioner. But what I'm asking you is that, number one, if in the trainings you know of, the spirit is included in the picture, not as a reference, as a key important aspect of the practice, and how do you think clients take it precisely? That was my next question, because not everybody's open to hearing about the spirit. And if we just talk about the knee, then we are a physical therapist that knows yoga. That's not a yoga therapist, perhaps. You understand? So what do you,
I think you meet people where they are. And part of being a good yoga therapist is knowing how to meet people where they are. The 800-hour training, as you know, you're training 800-hour? Yeah, so you already know the standard, has a great deal of psychology, and we have always had probably twice as many hours in the Yoga Sutras as anybody has ever required. But the Yoga Sutras are a way of looking at philosophy, and there is spirit included in it, but it's also a good map of the mind, as Rama says, right? Yes. It's a map of the mind. So frequently, that's where I start. And it just depends. Everybody's a little different. It just depends. Sometimes you teach spirit by embodying it and demonstrating it. Sometimes you teach spirit by speaking about it. Sometimes you wait for the other person to open that door. It's a part of yoga. So I think it's impossible to separate it. I think the practice, even if they're just doing that practice for their knee, I think they come into a better understanding of themselves and their connection to a higher self or connection to the rest of the world. And
do you find that clients are mostly open to that, or do you think it's the other side, that in general it's not that talked about?
I think everybody is different. I think that there is a great deal of faith and spirituality in America. And those people that are involved in their faith and their spirituality are going to find that coming into their practices. And those that have less to do with that may be coming at it in a little bit more subtle fashion. But I think it's impossible to separate it. I think it's there no matter what.
Now, in the scope of addressing the client, what I'm hearing you saying is that if the client doesn't want to talk about it, then you don't.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay. Um, when something sprouts so strongly, so deeply at a global level, as it is happening with yoga therapy, it usually fulfills a certain need of society. It's in relationship to something that is in lack, and then therefore it comes to serve that need. What do you think is the need that yoga therapy is fulfilling, if you think there's one?
You know, I think that yoga therapy and our general definition of yoga, it helps increase our awareness of ourselves and of the world around us. And I think that yoga therapy is just a wonderful way for people to be able to slow down and take a breath and come better in contact with who they truly are.
So you're saying contact. The main are
I'm
you
saying interpersonal integration. So just that ability for someone to be able to take a step back, take a breath, and reclaim who they truly are. Because I believe that we get sucked into a very busy life, and it's very useful and very helpful. And part of the reason that yoga has such a huge appeal is that it intrinsically brings people back into who they truly are.
So are you also somehow saying that we have become more disconnected than other periods of humanity, and that's why the integration is what yoga therapy is bringing back? Is that?
I think the society goes through waves, right? Everybody goes through waves. I think there was a huge wave towards spiritual awakening in the 60s and the 70s. Maybe it waned a little bit in the 80s and the 90s, and we're coming back to it. I don't know. It's all good as far as I'm concerned. I like what I see happening. I like what I see in the marketplace. I like what I see in the healthcare marketplace for yoga. I like the way the future looks. I think it's very bright. And I think these age-old practices have stood the test of time for many, many thousands of years, and they are just showing more of their versatility in today's market than they ever have before. And it's a wonderful thing to see.
And you just named the future. And accreditation, and we know from some examples, particularly Ayurveda and acupuncture, where the standardization and the accreditation got rid of some of the very important, particularly acupuncture, got rid of the very important spiritual, deeply rooted aspects. Are you concerned at all that that can happen with yoga therapy or not?
No.
No.
And I'm not concerned about it because I believe that whole integration of yoga, that union of yoga, is impossible to split apart. So no, I'm not worried about that. I think that everyone who studies yoga will bring the whole package to the table, whether they're doing it consciously or not. I think it's still there.
When you say that the future is bright, what are you basing your statement? What gives you that hope?
What gives me that hope? I have a yoga therapy business in Marin County that's healthy and growing, and I am involved in my local hospital and in a lot of healthcare areas. I am able to practice yoga with very diverse populations that I would never have had access to before. I am able to practice yoga with football players in the middle of the 50-yard line and have them love that and have the parents love that. So I see the future of yoga, and I don't have enough people to help me with the things that I'm trying to do. That's part of what we do with our teacher training, is we're trying to place people in those places so that we have more therapists to help me get done some of the things I want to get done. So I am seeing the doors opening all over the place for yoga as a therapeutic tool and yoga therapists. And I'm excited for what the future holds, and I'm running as fast as I can down that road.
And also, it seems that the doctors are also accepting it more as well.
Just as we said, a
Perhaps
lot of them
based
were...
on the research.
Yeah, well, and a lot of them were, as I said, in the 60s and 70s, when they were just looking at whether they're going to go to medical school, they were doing yoga and hearing about all of those heart-opening practices. So I think a lot more people have familiarity with it now than they've ever had with it before. When was it when Swamiji Vivekananda first came to Chicago? Was that 1920?
Vivekananda, no, earlier than that, wasn't I think it was before that, wasn't it 18?
So I think it's not, it's
18
less,
something.
it's a little over 100 years. Look at how much the idea of yoga from the days of Krishnamurti until today, look at what's happened. So no, I think it's a brilliant future.
Do you think that in any way social media helps yoga therapy or not?
There are lots of folks using social media. I am probably the last person to ask about that. I'm not that good at social media. At this point, is almost completely referral. People come in saying, you know, you helped John, can you help me? But I'm sure it does. I'm sure the more the information gets out there, the better.
You shared with us a story about the schizophrenic client that you obviously liked. Is there any other story you would like to share with us? Any one that is close to your heart?
About my schizophrenic clients?
No, about yoga therapy in general.
About yoga therapy. You know, I think the story that I like the best is the first season that I worked with the football team. And it was a kind of a dicey thing, yoga, and would that work? And oh my gosh, and was that okay? And I was trying to teach them to breathe in order to help them control their adrenaline so that they had more control over themselves in the game and they weren't using all their adrenaline up because they were just so hyper. And we got all the way to state that year. So one of the first times that that team had gone to state, and we were at the last practice session, and I said, what can I give you? What do you want from me? What can I do? You know, I thought we had just 22 weeks we had been at this season, long season, and they were going to the state championship. And one of the boys said, can you talk to us more about breathing? I think we need to know more about breathing. And I thought, take me now. It doesn't get better than this. There are 17-year-old boys that are learning how to control their energy and control their adrenaline, and they're doing it with breath. Come on.
Wonderful.
It doesn't get better than that. So yeah, I would say that what I see opening and happening with my young athletes is probably by far the most moving, because the things that they've learned about how to take care of their bodies are theirs for life. They won't forget that. And 4 or 5 years later, they tell me, oh, when my back hurts, coach, I do this and I do that. And they tell me how the tools are still working for them. So it's a huge thing to think that you have interfaced with young people and had an impact that's theirs for life. That's huge.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
And you earlier said that you're the stretching coach. So do you just sneak yoga in, or?
No, we call it yoga, but you know, we call it a stretching coach, and it's all yoga. Yeah, I don't know anything that isn't yoga. It's all yoga to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Robin, how can people get in touch with you if they want to?
The Stress Management Center is in Larkspur. We have a website, SMC, like Stress Management Center, Marin, smcmarin.com. Or I think you can put in Robin and Stress Management, and I probably pop up on that social media stuff you were talking about.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you and to hear your good and encouraging stories and views on yoga therapy. And I would very probably like to have you again at the show and perhaps speak about those other economic aspects of your studio that are also interesting to a lot of our audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. My guest today was Robin Gueth. She is a 38-year veteran of yoga and has been teaching yoga therapy for 20 years. She is a graduate of the American Yoga College directed by Rama Yoti Vernon and is certified in Nischala Devi's Yoga for the Heart. She has studied with Angela Farmer and Victor Van Kooten, and her background includes Kripalu Yoga, Iyengar Yoga, Shiatsu and Thai massage, Feldenkrais, Dharma, and Acu Yoga. She is skilled in working with various types of mental illnesses, respiratory illnesses, and orthopedic issues. And her studio, the Stress Management Center of Marin, is the first Bay Area studio being awarded accreditation in yoga therapy training from the International Association of Yoga Therapists. I hope you liked our show today. And if you care to let me know, send me an email at antonio@yogiviews.com. I look forward to seeing you the next time.